Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm here with Scott Root with the Department of Wildlife Resources. He's the Conservation Outreach Manager. Scott, very great to have you on the show once again. How have you been?
Great.
Good, very good. And today we are talking about birding, and not only, you know, being out around nature, going on trails, camping, and finding and identifying birds, but also in attracting them to your backyard even. So let's start off with that.
Okay, that's a great thing to start with. Park City's a little unique. You know, in one aspect, I'm out there telling people in certain communities, you probably shouldn't have bird feeders because if you have got bears that it might bring them in.
Yeah, so how does that work?
So for Park City area, that's a really important issue to evaluate. If you live maybe inside Park City, go for it. If you live up on the hills, which a lot of people do, you do run the risk of bringing a bear in,
Bears
especially
like bird feed.
Especially a hummingbird feeder. That can be an issue.
Yeah.
Sugar water.
I never even thought of that.
And most people don't.
Can they like smell that?
They can smell it from a mile away.
Oh man, if you have one of those, we're kind of worried. I'm worried for you. I didn't even ever think of that. So unless you're like within like more of the city limits area, you're okay.
Well, that's probably what I would recommend.
Okay.
I mean, you always want to consider that. Most people that I talk to throughout the entire central region, it's not an issue. I have bird feeders at my home. Maybe a few tips about bird feeders. First of all, there are some people that recommend not feeding birds. They don't want to have them rely on humans and that type of thing.
Okay.
I'm not one of those. I'm too selfish. I love to bring birds to my yard. And I try to make it friendly. I try to have some water available for them. You can have a bird bath. You could, have just water sources.
So what are the best types of bird feed then?
Great question. And it depends. My personal experience is I like the black oil sunflower seeds. And I have a station right adjacent to my house. I've got a bunch of feeders. And I've had up to 12 different species at one time at my feeder. Every color of the rainbow.
Oh, that's so neat.
This year the birds stayed a little higher because it's been so dry. So Park City residents probably have had some really good birds. I was down in Utah County. But the black oil sunflower seed's a favorite of mine because the seeds that fall onto the ground, I get a lot of mourning doves or Eurasian collared doves and other birds that come down and they can feed on that. And naturally, they're seeds, so you're going to get growth underneath there, and I get beautiful sunflowers.
Oh, wow.
Now, the millet, that's a little tiny yellow little seeds you can get like bird food. You can buy bags of that stuff.
Yes.
It's more of a grass, and it's just not quite as pretty for me, but certain birds prefer certain seed types.
So do you know, like, if you want to attract a certain type of bird, I guess if you know this much about birds, you can attract a certain type depending on what type of feed you put
Absolutely.
out there.
Yeah, like the little mountain chickadees and black-capped chickadees. They love thistle, little teeny little, narrow little seeds. You could have cracked corn for like, maybe the jays, or if you've got wild turkeys or quail. Excuse me, any of these different, you could have all of the different types of feed. Robins like fruit. And they're not really a bird seed eater.
Fruit out there in a little
dried fruit, yeah, sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's all different types of seeds. People will put bird seed out there waiting for robins to come take the seed.
And like, why isn't it happening?
Yeah.
Well, it's just like fishing. If you don't have the right kind of fly, they're not going to get the right kind of fish.
Exactly.
They're not going to bite. So I never actually thought about that with birds.
And I got to say, online, there are so many good resources for the people who they want to learn a little bit more about feeding birds, about maybe joining a birding group, or where to go to see birds, and we can talk about all that right now too.
Yeah. So as far as with types of birds to be found around Park City, we covered that, and then birding events. If you want to kind of get familiar with the how-to of where to go to see certain types of birds or how to attract them to where you're at, what are some events happening with that?
Well, kind of the big one every year in the spring, so we're a little bit late. Would be like the Great Salt Lake Bird Festival. That's really grown into a large event. It's actually located up there by Farmington Bay. But I mean, the Division of Wildlife Resources, coming up in about a month and a half, I'll have a raptor viewing day, not a dinosaur, but the birds of prey viewing event we'll hold in Provo Canyon at the Orem Overlook. So come down the canyon. Basically, look at our website. It'll be in the newspaper. We'll announce it. But what we do is we drive up to the Orem Overlook, the Squaw
providing
Peak
homemade
Road,
sandwiches, soups, and
overlooking all of Utah Valley. Beautiful view. And in September and into October, that's kind of the fall migration of the birds of prey. And they tend to follow the ridge lines and such and play on the breezes. And we just sit there with our binoculars, and sometimes we'll have a bird right over our head, just sitting there, just not moving on the breeze, you know, on the wind. And sometimes they're going 100 miles an hour, but we have a lot of fun, and we'll see maybe 30 or 40 birds in a few hours.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's a lot of different fun activities. There's a Christmas bird count you can get involved with. But if you get online, there's like birding.com, there's utahbirds.org, and there are some other websites. If you just Google in Utah birding groups or Utah birding events, plenty of good
So as far as
sites.
organizations you can get involved in, you'll find this under Utah birding groups as well as
Absolutely.
events?
There's a Salt Lake Birders, there's a Utah County Birders. Of course, there's several chapters of the Audubon Society, and all of them would love to have new participants. And I tell you, these are some of the greatest people you'll ever meet, both young and old. Everybody thinks, well, they're all retired people. Well, they're not. Young and old. And you know, the movie,
Scott, you're young enough.
I'm young enough. I hope so. But like that movie, the Big Year and stuff, that's kind of brought a lot of excitement about birding, and it's just a very enjoyable hobby, and for some people a passion. I have friends who have retired from the Division of Wildlife Resources, and they spend the rest of their career in a motorhome driving across the land, all across the country, just to see a bird.
Wow.
To put on that life list.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is, but it's fun, and you don't have anything more beautiful than Utah birds. I mean, we have over 400 birds in the state. And other states have a lot more than we do, but the birds we have are so pretty, most of them.
So Scott, if you're going out, you know, first time to view some of these birds and do some of these events you were talking about, what's some of the gear and how should you prepare? Not only like how to dress, I mean that's seasonal of course, but what things do you need to bring and how long should you plan being out there? I mean, this is something where, okay, some people I feel like think that, or maybe this is just me, like, oh, if I'm going out to a place where they say there's going to be a birding event, I'm going to see stuff, you know, every minute. I mean, is there a lot of waiting with this?
You know what? No, it's so easy. If you don't have binoculars, and this, you know, Park City TV viewers are going to hear a little secret right now.
What is it?
I have about 20 spotting scopes, which are kind of fun. Binoculars are easier to use. I have a few of those. I'd be more than happy to loan out. But I've got those at my office in Springville, a little bit of a drive. But if somebody wants to have like a big birding, you know, event, I'd be more than happy to loan out my box of spotting scopes and binoculars.
And what's a spotting scope?
Okay,
For those,
like a telescope.
Okay, that's what I thought, but
Yeah.
how is it, what does it allow you to do versus a
But a spotting
binoculars?
scope is kind of difficult to use for birding because it's got that very, like, it's just a narrow field of view, and you know, birds are moving all over the place.
I can just imagine
Yeah.
trying to.
But there are
play on
times
that.
where you might have a hawk perched up in a tree, and you want to know what type of hawk is that, so it's good. But binoculars, just a decent pair of binoculars are what you want. Always have some sunscreen if it's, you know, July. Have some water. A little day pack is perfect with some snacks. And I tell people, just hit a river. A river is the best place to go, in my opinion, because birds like water, and birds like all the bugs that like the water. And another thing, and I get long-winded because I'm so passionate about birds. Look at different zones when you're out birding. We have some birds that tend to be right on the ground. We have some birds that tend to be kind of like halfway up on a bush. We have birds that like to be halfway up in a tree. We have birds that like the tops of the trees. And so
you're not just looking up all the time. It could be, like when you're out on an event, you want to look below and in the bushes because you can see some others there as well.
And even if we have birds like the American dipper. That's a bird that it hangs out right on the river. and it will actually be on a rock in the running river and kind of dip underneath and swim under the water.
Oh,
and
really?
Getting little organisms, and oh yeah, I mean, so birds are everywhere, and it's a lot of fun to watch them, and with experience you'll learn where to find them. And groups will help you to know where to find them as well.
And what a great way to get involved, to hang out with one of these groups, I'm sure. What a great group of people I'm sure it is to hang out with. And so when you're out there, I'm sure you want to take pictures. What's the best way to get photos of birds?
Yeah, quickly, when you, a lot of new birders will see a bird and they're like, oh my goodness, what in the heck is that bird? That is so pretty. And then you have to race back and you go get your book, and you're like,
and
well,
by then.
So that was the first reason why I wanted to have a camera. But now I take bird pictures all the time. And I like to actually come home with a beautiful bird, even if it's a robin. I don't care what it is. Birds are so, I guess, photogenic or whatever you want to say. And I love to take pictures.
Are these any of yours?
They're all my pictures, wherever
really?
they are. Yes, these are all pictures.
Wow.
And a lot of them I've taken right around the Park City area or around Midway. That's a downy woodpecker there.
Oh, what's this? That's beautiful.
That's a wood duck, and they're
okay,
a
I should
little
know
unusual.
That, my dad likes duck.
Oh,
yeah. Those are beautiful.
And see, I'm holding a barn owl right there. That's it, and that's a bald eagle.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, we have a lot of birding events. I take groups owling up at Sundance all through winter from December till about March. So you could call Sundance Resort to learn more about that. But a good pair of binoculars is basically all you need, and just have some water, snacks, and some sunscreen, and maybe some bug spray, and you're ready to go. As far as a camera, I like to have at least about a 300mm lens, because you really need to be able to zoom in to get some of these pictures that you've seen. But they're wonderful, and they're so popular on Facebook. It's so nice to have a mechanism to say, hey, look what I took a picture of today,
Yeah.
and people love it. So it's fun.
Oh, that's wonderful. There's so many great tips and tools to use if you want to head out birding. If you're visiting the area, want something fun to do, and kind of leisurely, a nice stroll through a beautiful trail and overlook, you can check out some birds with some of these groups. So last question for you. Tell me briefly, what is this and where can you get a hold of this? Because this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I took the bird checklist of Utah, and I turned it into a poster and put some little small lines on the poster. And
there's a lot of information here.
It is, and you can actually put where you saw the bird and when you saw the bird with this poster. Cool. It's great for school classrooms, or if you're getting into the hobby. I expect to have this all filled out, and by the time you guys all get older.
Cool.
But
do you have one of these filled out for yourself yet?
Not yet, not all the way. But
I'm surprised.
I've left about a dozen or so here at the studio for you guys if you want to give them away.
Thank you very much. What a great tool to use. Not only if you're doing some fun stuff with your kids this summer, but also as a classroom, or if you're into birding and want to keep track of things. Well, thank you so much, Scott. It was a pleasure to have you on again.
Thank you, Chelsea.
I mean, what a great activity to take part in, not only as a hobby, but a passion, and it's great for you to share that with us.
You'll get hooked, I promise, if you start.
Oh, I believe it. And those pictures, those photos were beautiful. I thought that as we were going through so many of those, I was like, wait a second, did Scott take these? And
no, you bet.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
I'm an average guy, but I feel like I'm a great photographer. But
those are impressive. Those are some gorgeous birds you were able to show us. So thank you very much once again. We sure appreciate you coming on the show. I know it's going to be some nice weather out, so grab your binoculars and head over to one of these great sites you can go look and go birding. So we'll be right back here with more on the Mountain Morning Show. Stay with us.